The Cortez mansion stood tall against the Boston skyline, its mirrored windows reflecting the setting October sun. Leonardo Cortez observed the city from his office on the top floor, a glass of whiskey untouched on the mahogany table. His dark brown eyes were fixed on a distant point, while his mind wandered through the empty corridors of his own life. The soft sound of the door opening brought him back to reality. Margaret, his assistant for over a decade, entered with a black folder in her hands. Cortez, the CV of the candidates you requested. She said, her voice professional, though Leonardo detected a note of concern. She knew the situation too well to maintain total neutrality. How many this time? He asked, turning his chair to face her. 15. All with excellent references and experience with children who need special care. Leonardo picked up the folder, quickly flipping through the documents. Each candidate looked perfect on paper, but he knew better than anyone how appearances could be deceiving. Schedule interviews with the top 3 for tomorrow, he said. Margaret hesitated. Dr. Matthews called. He insists that Lucas needs stability. Changing babysitters every 2 months isn't. We pay Dr. Matthews to look after my son's health, not to give me advice on how to run my household. Leonardo cut in, his voice as icy as the wind outside. Margaret nodded, recognizing the cue to leave. Before she left, however, she stopped at the door. Lucas asked if you'd have dinner with him tonight. A muscle tensed in Leonardo's jaw. I have a video conference with investors in Tokyo. He paused, remembering the disappointed expression his son always had when he received his apology. Cancel the conference. I'll be there at 7. Alone again, Leonardo opened the top drawer of his desk and took out a photograph. Catherine was smiling in the picture, her green eyes shining with the same intensity that Lucas had inherited. 5 years had passed since the accident, but the pain remained as vivid as on the first day. Downstairs, he heard Lucas's characteristic cough, followed by the gentle voice of Mrs. Peterson, the temporary nanny. She was the 5th this year. Leonardo knew he needed to find someone permanent, but the idea of entrusting his son's care to a stranger terrified him. Walking down the marble stairs, he found Lucas in the living room, wrapped in his favorite blanket, watching a documentary about the oceans. When Lucas saw him, the boy smiled, and Leonardo felt the familiar tightness in his chest. Lucas was a living image of Catherine, from his golden curls to the fresh freckles that dotted his nose. Dad, are you having dinner with me tonight? Yes, champ. How about we order that pizza you like? Lucas's eyes lit up, but then a cough shook him. Mrs. Peterson approached with the inhaler, and Leonardo watched helplessly as his son struggled to breathe. Moments like this reminded him of how much was at stake, how much he needed to protect the only person who still mattered in his life. Later, after putting Lucas to bed, Leonardo sat in his private office, turning on the monitors that showed every room in the house. It was his nightly ritual to check that everything was in order and that his son was safe. Tomorrow he would interview the candidates, and one of them would be chosen to be part of this hermetically controlled world he had built. Among the CV, one name caught his eye. Isabella Martinez. Her references were impeccable, her experience with sick children extensive, but it was something about the photo that stopped him. A genuine smile that reached her eyes, unlike the rehearsed expressions of the other candidates. The phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was his lawyer, Richard. Leonardo, I received the documents for the new nanny. It's my special recipe, replied Isabella, undeterred. It's rich in nutrients and low in sodium, according to medical restrictions. The secret is in the fresh herbs. Lucas raised his spoon excitedly. Try it. It's like magic. It doesn't taste like medicine. Leonardo hesitated for a moment before accepting the spoonful his son offered. The taste surprised him. It really was delicious. Ms. Martinez, can we talk in private? In his office, Leonardo closed the door. I appreciate your initiative, but any changes to Lucas's diet need to be approved first. With all due respect, Mr. Cortez, the soup follows all dietary restrictions. I have a complete composition here. She handed over a detailed sheet. Besides, I've noticed that Lucas is resistant to eating. Turning the meal into something pleasurable could help his recovery. So Leonardo studied the document, looking for flaws. He found none. There's something else I need to discuss, she continued. Lucas mentioned that he'd like to see the garden. With the weather improving, a few minutes of morning sun would be beneficial for him. Absolutely not. The outside air can strengthen his immune system under controlled conditions, Isabella interrupted. Isolating him completely from the world won't protect him forever. The silence that followed was tense. Leonardo struggled internally between his need for control and the logic of her words. One week, he finally said, Give me positive results in a week, and I'll consider your suggestions about outside activities. In the evening, after Lucas had fallen asleep, Isabella was organizing her notes when she came across a drawing he had made. 3 stick figures, one tall, one small, and one medium-sized, all smiling under a starry sky. Leonardo, who had spent the day alternating between meetings and monitoring the cameras, found the drawing on his desk the next morning with a note attached. Mr. Cortez, Lucas has a heart bigger than his room and dreams bigger than his limitations. He drew this today talking about how nice it would be to watch the stars for real one day. Sometimes the greatest acts of protection involve allowing small, calculated risks. Respectfully, Isabella Martinez. Sitting back in his chair, Leonardo looked longingly at the drawing. Catherine's words echoed in his mind, a love without freedom, it's a gilded cage. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to wonder if his protective methods weren't actually stifling Lucas's chances of living fully. On the monitor, he watched Isabella adjusting the star projector, creating a private universe on the ceiling of Lucas's room. Lucas laughed, pointing at the constellations, his eyes shining with a joy Leonardo hadn't seen in a long time. Perhaps Leonardo thought it was time he learned to let go of the reins a little. Isabella's first month at the Cortez mansion passed quickly, bringing subtle but significant changes. The most noticeable was Lucas's frequent smile, which now echoed through the previously silent corridors. Leonardo watched through the cameras, noticing how his son seemed stronger, more lively, despite the limitations of his condition. One particularly clear morning, Leonardo canceled an important meeting when he saw on the monitor that Lucas was having a respiratory crisis. He rushed to his son's room, only to find Isabella already controlling the situation with a confidence that left him speechless. Breathe with me, Captain," she said softly, sitting behind Lucas on the bed and guiding his breathing. "Remember our story about the diver?" Let him go up to the surface very slowly. Lucas, leaning against her, followed her breathing rhythm, his small hands squeezing her arms. Leonardo stood in the doorway, invisible to both of them, observing the intimacy of that moment. "All right," Isabella continued. "And now tell me 3 things you can see." At the star projector, Lucas breathed, calmer. "My ocean book and Mom's picture." Leonardo felt his heart squeeze. Catherine's picture was on the bedside table, smiling eternally at the son who looked so much like her. "Great, great." "2 things you can touch. Send my blanket and your necklace." Isabella smiled, letting Lucas play with a little anchor-shaped pendant she always wore. "Perfect. Something you can smell. The chamomile tea make." The crisis passed gradually, leaving Lucas exhausted but stable. When he finally fell asleep, Isabella tucked him into bed with motherly care. When she turned around, she was startled to see Leonardo. "Mr. Cortez, I'm sorry I didn't see you. How long have you been using this technique with him?" "The anchoring technique?" "Since the 2nd week." "It helps prevent panic during crises by focusing on the senses." Leonardo ran his hand through his hair, a rare gesture of vulnerability. "Oh, why wasn't I informed?" "It's in the daily report I send you," she replied softly. Page 3, paragraph 2 of last week's report. He remembered the document he had barely skimmed, too busy with mergers and acquisitions. Guilt hit him like a punch. "Mr. Cortez." Isabella hesitated before continuing. "Can I make a suggestion?" He nodded, still watching his sleeping son. "Lucas needs his father as much as he needs his medication. Your presence has a therapeutic effect that no treatment can replace." I have a company to run," he defended himself, but his voice lacked conviction. "And you have a son to love," she replied firmly. "Allow me to show you something, Foetus." Isabella opened a folder she kept organized in the bedroom. "These are the records of Lucas's vital signs. Notice how the numbers improve significantly when you're present. Yesterday, during the dinner you shared, His saturation remained stable for hours. Leonardo examined the graph, his analytical gaze recognizing the pattern she was pointing out. Why do you keep such detailed records? Because care isn't just about administering medication, Mr. Cortez. It's about understanding every aspect that affects his well being. That afternoon, Leonardo canceled all his meetings. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to spend hours with Lucas, listening to him talk about his maritime discoveries, the stories Isabella told, and his dreams of one day seeing the ocean for real. Through the security cameras, Isabella discreetly watched the interaction between father and son, a soft smile on her lips. Margaret approached her in the monitor room. The first time I've seen him like this since Catherine left, the assistant commented, "He's so afraid of losing Lucas that sometimes he forgets to live," Isabella replied. "How did you manage to convince him?" "He didn't. I just showed him that love and protection don't have to be mutually exclusive in the evening after Lucas had fallen asleep." Leonardo found Isabella in the kitchen preparing the chamomile tea his son loves so much. "Miss Martinez." "Isabella, please," she corrected. "I thank you for the day, for everything." She returned the smile, that genuine smile that had intrigued him since the first interview. "Lucas is an extraordinary boy, Mr. Cortez. He doesn't just need to survive, he deserves to flourish." Leonardo picked up a cup of tea, inhaling its soft aroma. Catherine used to say something like that. It was the first time he had mentioned his late wife voluntarily to anyone in years. The silence that followed was not uncomfortable, but full of mutual understanding. That night, before going to sleep, Leonardo turned off the cameras in Lucas's room for the first time. Some things he realized needed to be felt with the heart, not monitored by screens. Autumn painted the mansion's gardens in golden hues as Isabella completed 2 months of work. The routine had settled comfortably, and even Leonardo was beginning to relax his strict security protocols. However, an accidental discovery was about to shake up the harmony that had been achieved. During a particularly hectic afternoon, while organizing some documents in Leonardo's office at his request,